I'd like to call this meeting of the Victoria Parks Commission to order. It's 5:03 by the clock that I can see over there. It appears to me that we've got 4 members present in person, and that's enough for a quorum. I don't know, we're set up for a Zoom meeting, so I'm going to, without objection, I'd like to take the agenda a little bit out of order and move on down first to item D, as in dog, the announcements and reminders, so that we can go ahead and kind of get out onto the record the fact that we are in a part in person and a part Zoom proceeding. Members of the commission, if we're allowed to participate by Zoom, so if there's anyone on the commission who has appeared by that method, can we tell or do we know at this point whether you've got anybody trying to log on as a commission, as a panelist?
No, so
Nobody at this, nobody at this time? Okay. Well, members of the public are allowed to join in and to comment through the Zoom connection. And so I think what we'll do is ask if there's anybody that has logged in for the purpose of making public comment. And if so, we'll move on into the citizen communication, section B.
I don't believe so. No, sir. There's no citizens requesting comment.
Okay, good. Good to know. I guess if someone comes on, we can maybe return to that or something. We'll see. So I'd like to move at this point on to item number E, again out of order, without objection, to the approval of the minutes. It's been quite a while since the group has met, April of last year, I believe. But the minutes of that last meeting are in our packets. I'll entertain a motion if they've been reviewed. If anyone has a motion to approve the minutes as presented or to suggest any alterations that need to be made to them.
I would move to accept them.
The motion to accept, is there a second? Sorry?
I wasn't at that meeting, so. Can I
Okay.
vote?
I don't think that prevents you from seconding if you want to.
I'll second then.
So do we have a motion? Did I hear a motion, or was that somebody from back there? Okay, sorry. Okay, thank you. I couldn't tell. Motion is second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I would like to move, again, out of order, without objection, I would like to move items from commissioner down to right before we adjourn. And the reason for doing that is that I want to go ahead and introduce our new Parks Commission, or our new Parks Department Director. I think that since it's been so long since we've met, that items from commissioners might benefit from having this meeting and what happens in this meeting before us, so that we can talk about what we want to do. That's going to largely be stuff that we'll have to take up in a subsequent meeting under a subsequent agenda. And so I think that's probably a more convenient place to move that. With that, let's move into other business, and let's begin with a welcome and an introduction. I'd simply like to kick that off by saying that we are really tickled to have the opportunity to recognize and to welcome Jason Alfaro as our new Parks Department Director. Jason has come to us from the community of Jersey Village, which is on the northwest side of Houston, there. He was formerly in Kingsville, also working with Jesus Garza at that location as well, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, Jason, you are from Victoria, as I understand, grew up here,
Yes, sir.
and are back now with ready to go to work. I know that you and I have met, and I think you've at this point met those commissioners who are here. Have you had a chance to meet all of the commissioners yet? Not quite?
No, sir, not all of them.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, I'll let you kick off the welcome and introductions that you'd like to make, and get us off into our other business for the day.
Absolutely. So I appreciate it. Thank you, Chairman Keeling, for that introduction. Just to give you a little bit of background about me, I've been in Parks and Recreation for the last 17 or 18 years. First started working with the city of Bastrop, moved down to the city of Kingsville as the Parks and Recreation Director down there. Had the opportunity to come to Jersey Village and work in the Houston area. And then obviously the opportunity arose for City of Victoria, which my family and I are super excited about. We're actually closing on our home this week, and so I'm ecstatic just to be able to get the family down and not necessarily have to drive in Houston traffic anymore. So I think that's one of the biggest things that I'm looking forward to, just getting the family here. So I'm super excited about being here as your Parks and Recreation Director for the City of Victoria. I'm really excited about the quality of life here for Victoria. It's not too often that you get the opportunity to enhance the quality of life in the city that you grew up in. And so I find that to be a very exciting opportunity, and I'm excited to work with each and all of you as we continue to pave the way forward in Parks and Rec. So really excited to get things rolling, and thus our meeting that we have today. And as Chairperson Keeling mentioned earlier, it's been over a year since we've had this meeting, and so there are a little bit of hiccups and road bumps that we're going to be getting through for the first meeting or two. But I think after we kind of get all the wrinkles ironed out, if you will, this will be a smoother meeting process. So just bear with us as we push through.
I got a question. If it's not out of order, I know that there's viewers out there and just wonder, well, what does he look like? Is it possible to maybe remove your mask so people can identify you?
Sure, I think we're 6 feet away for the moment, so
And
absolutely. Does that work?
This is a
Okay.
new director.
There he is.
You better
So
do
if you
it.
see me
Unwrapped,
like
right.
this or like this, don't be afraid. It's good.
Thank you.
Yes,
Well,
sir.
the mayor said you had to wear them while you're inside. That's what I thought I understood. And
Yeah.
Thomas can probably clarify what that requirement is, but
Yes, sir.
thank you for that. Well, Jason, we're very happy to have you. I'm anxious for the other members of the commission to get an opportunity to visit with you and to get some of the opportunities I've had to get to know you a little bit and to talk a little bit in particular about, about where this body is going to go and what function we'll be fulfilling. And some of that we're going to be able to talk about when we review some potential changes to the bylaws and to the ordinance. Of course, that would have to be passed by council, but an opportunity to really focus on the role and the function of this body. And we won't be in a situation where we wait, a year and some months before we meet again. That's one of the things. In fact, that's the next thing I think on the agenda that we need to talk about. Come on up here,
Jesse.
Jesse. Jesse is still on his seat is still good. Jesse, the quorum was already here, so we went ahead and started. We had some introductions. Yes, sir. And we'll catch you up on that a little bit later. But we are right now looking at item F, number 2, under item F, which would be the decision on setting the time of regular Parks Commission meetings. That's a point that we can pick up and discuss. I think if it's okay with you, I'd like to at least let Jason introduce that. Maybe Thomas has thoughts on it, I don't know. But we can talk about it among ourselves. If you had some thoughts, though, I thought it might be good for you to go ahead and begin that discussion, Jason.
Sure thing. So I'll stick with, it's kind of run into 2 and 3, but just to give you a quick overview of the bylaws and the ordinance, and how it relates to the Parks Commission meetings and why we'd be discussing the setting of the time. When I first got here, one of the biggest things I think that was on the city's plate is the Parks Master Plan. And so that was something that we really took a look at and pushing forward with an RFP for the Parks Master Plan. And so in that, we started reviewing the bylaws and the commission description and how the Parks Commission could play a role in the Parks Master Plan process. Really trying to look at the bylaws and seeing what that description looked like for the board. And so we realized in the board's description that there were some things that we would like to discuss with you. And one of those actually showed us having a regular Parks Commission meeting, and it didn't specify anything. It didn't specify a date. It didn't specify a time. And Thomas may be able to speak on this a little bit further in greater detail than myself, but we felt that that was something that we needed to first address, was actually having a meeting time and a date set in place. And then that way we could continue to move forward with the bylaw and the ordinance changing of the description itself.
Could I ask a question to just,
Sure.
on that point, if I could? Thomas, you know, I've looked at some proposed bylaws. I know that we don't have a set to look at today. But my question, I guess, is, do you envision that the bylaws would specify what the regular meeting interval is? Or do you see that the bylaws would authorize the commission to establish that? Do you feel one way or the other strongly about that? Because I think that's something we'd like to discuss among ourselves.
I don't feel strongly about that one way or the other, and I will leave that up to the commission and the director to decide. There are advantages, as you know, to both. If you put it into the bylaws specifically, then it is more rigid, and that can be both an advantage and a disadvantage to the future, because then everybody knows exactly when the meeting is, and it's unlikely to change. That rigidity, though, can cause issues down the road if it comes to that. One of those issues kind of hits us at this specific moment where the bylaws themselves say they have to be amended at a regular meeting, not a specially called meeting. And since we don't yet know what the regular meeting schedule is, that makes it difficult for us to predict when we can amend the bylaws. And so as the Parks and Recreation Department moves forward with the responsibility of updating these bylaws and making them meaningful, we need to set the date of when that regular meeting is so that it falls in such a way that the bylaws can be approved by this commission and then approved by city council all in a timely manner. So there's some calendar jiggling that needs to happen here. But ultimately, when we get to adopting the bylaws, if you choose to have the regular meeting specified, I'm okay with that. And if you choose to keep it flexible, that does provide you some other opportunities.
Well, for that purpose, would it be sufficient if we were to set tonight some regular meeting dates, at least through the period that it takes to get the bylaws approved?
That's exactly my recommendation,
Okay.
yes.
All right, okay. Is everybody on board with that? Any discussion or thoughts about setting a regular meeting date for the commission?
You're meeting once a month?
Sorry?
Once a month? You're talking about once a month?
That's what we're talking about, didn't we?
I would want to move back to the once a month
Once a month.
meetings, opposed to the quarterly that sometimes gets pushed to never. So, yes, I would
Yeah, no,
most
the last
definitely
time-
agree with that.
Yeah, the last time we met was, quarterly and then yearly. So I'm like with Gail, preferably once a month, that way we can set our calendar as to once a month, we can, know that we have this meeting.
Other thoughts?
I agree with Mike and Gil. I think once a month is going to be, the better option.
I think meeting more frequently will help us move projects along.
Let me ask, that's fine. And if anybody have a preference with respect to whether that ought to be something that we put in our bylaws, or whether that ought to be something we simply establish on our own in a meeting like this.
Establish on our own probably, so that we can have flexibility.
No, we have
Because
flexibility.
sometimes I think we might have projects going on, and sometimes we might have a little lull, so, so that there is flexibility. I think that's what
Any
got us
thoughts
in
on-
trouble last time. That's what moved us to quarterly, is there was nothing going on, so why should we meet? Or the majority of people had nothing going on, so it was voted down.
If I can jump in there just a little bit, Ms. Hode, I think that's, the argument that you just made for flexibility versus rigidity is actually an argument for putting them in the bylaws so that they will be there, so that the bylaws actually say we will have regular meetings and they can't be moved around or canceled unnecessarily. So as I said before, it cuts both ways. But if your goal is to set up a meeting schedule that will then be followed and not changed willy-nilly, it makes more sense to put them in the bylaws, have them adopted both by this board and then by council. And then it's much more difficult to change that schedule.
Okay.
That being said, I kind of, I kind of think your thought is a good one, just from my personal, I mean, there's typically times when, we may decide, a lot of boards you're on, take a month off in the middle of the summer or something like that. I'm not sure that works for us exactly, but it seems to me that I kind of like the flexibility part of it, but I'd be for, I mean,
Well,
Well,
any other
because
thoughts?
Lee proposed we can have flexibility and not set it, but he's saying that we have to either set it or not set it, so I'm confused.
Well, I think the idea is we just need to set a regular meeting date, correct?
Sure, and Mr. Alfaro and I were just conversing here on the side. We could also clarify directly into the bylaws that regular meetings can be canceled by the director if there is no business to conduct, right? And by doing that, establishing the rigidity in the bylaws, but also allowing the flexibility, that means every month we would be coming back to at least let you know that we're not having a meeting, right? And so there would at least be a touch point, a contact point along the way to make sure that everybody's still on the same page.
Well, that could be useful.
I just want to be able to meet. That's the bottom line for me, so.
Is there a motion from anybody on the commission with respect to this?
However it's written to accomplish the goal of let's meet monthly is what I'm.
Well, let me put it this way. Is there a motion to establish regular meetings monthly? And then I guess we kind of have to confront does everybody like the Monday? Does Monday work for the city? That's what we used to meet on a Monday. It was I forgot what Monday it was. But
Second or third week?
was it the third Monday?
It's been too long.
Mondays are fine. See, second Monday, that would be in line with city council, is that correct?
Second Monday would be the day before a council meeting,
You
yes.
probably don't want to do that, and we haven't done that, because
That was my question. When
No, I'm
does the
sorry.
council meet?
Second Monday is the week in between. Council meets first and
First and
third
third.
Tuesdays. So the second Monday would be the week in between council meetings.
does that work for,
Second Monday?
Yeah.
okay, so I guess.
That works fine.
We ready for the motion?
I think so. If you.
Yeah, I'll make the motion that we meet regularly monthly at the second Monday of the month. At 5 o'clock be good?
Do you have a preference with respect to that this should be put in the bylaws, or just adopt a program by us?
Maybe in the bylaws, or you just, anywhere where it's flexible, where, like, our Mr. Lawyer here, Thomas, said that we have flexibility, that the commissioner himself can cancel the meetings or continue with meetings. If there's nothing in the agenda, then he has the authority to go ahead and cancel the meeting. So I would prefer that, either be in the bylaws and with the understanding that the Parks Commissioner has the authority to cancel it if he has to.
Okay,
And it's on the second Monday,
so let
5 o'clock.
me see if I can repeat your motion.
Okay.
There's a motion before the floor that the commission meet on the second Monday of each month for its regular meeting. and that it would be the intent that this be something that we would put in the bylaws. So when we get to that, we'll deal with that, but just so everybody's clear on our intention going forward, everybody. So with that motion, if there's any more discussion,
I don't believe there's a second to that motion yet.
oh, well, I'm sorry,
second the
that's a good point. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll
And then-
second the motion.
And before you vote, a point of clarification, I noticed that you did not state a time of the meeting, and I'm gonna recommend that you keep it that way. The reason I'm saying that is because I want y'all to just be aware that this room is our municipal courtroom as well. Were it not for COVID, this room might have been used this afternoon as a courtroom, and sometimes court proceedings can run long. And so I'm gonna ask that you be flexible as far as what time that meeting is likely to happen. 5 PM should work most weeks, but it might be better if 5:30 were the time to be, for this meeting to be called. And I don't know that we need to necessarily nail that down with that level of specificity in the bylaws, but I just want to make sure that before y'all vote on this, you're aware that there may need to be some flexibility on the timing of these meetings.
Okay, so we'll just, would you care to
That'd be
amend
fine
your
with me, as long
motion
as
to
the,
that extent?
As long as the courtroom here is available, then the time is flexible from 5 to 5:30.
Okay, so
even
subject to
even
the
6
timing and
o'clock.
availability.
Yeah, even 6 o'clock, according to the availability of this building.
Okay. All right, is there a second for the
I'll
amended
second.
motion? Okay. All right, everybody's got if there's no further discussion, everybody understands the motion. I'll call for all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Well, there we go. We've got a regular meeting date
Excellent.
without a time.
So that means your next meeting will be on the 13th of July, if anyone's interested.
Okay, all right. And that may work out just exactly right. We'll have to see.
Exactly.
Okay, next on the agenda is to discuss and take appropriate action on an updated Parks Commission bylaws and city ordinance. Thomas, are you going to talk about that, or?
I can touch on it really quickly, and Thomas can dive into some of the dirty details, if you will. But that works out perfectly because you just, accepted a second Monday meeting. And so the whole entire goal for this next month is to be able to provide you with some updated documents for the bylaws and the ordinance as far as the Parks Commission is concerned. That way it'll allow you some time to be able to review it. We can come back here in about 2.5 weeks or so, whenever that date ends up hitting, and be able to discuss it even further. But for today, we don't have any bylaws for you to look at, but we did want to be able just to start the conversation and let you know, again, that we are looking at the bylaws and to be able to try to change the verbiage in there a little bit. Again, a lot of it had to do with the Parks Master Plan. And so with the Parks Master Plan taking place, there's going to be a lot of spearheading that's going to have to take place as well with the Parks Commission. And so a lot of that is going to be an advisory role. It's going to be a lot of dealing with the citizens and the public, and really just interacting with the citizens for the Parks Master Plan, getting a lot of the information available to us. And so when we were looking at the bylaws, that's what we realized, that the verbiage really wasn't that clear in there, relating to those types of programs, right? Those types of opportunities for the commission. And so we wanted to revisit that, and we wanted to be able to have your input. And so Thomas may be able to kind of fill in a little bit more, but that was really the how we got to this point in the conversation.
Just for the benefit of the members of the commission, we have had some discussion about both the ordinance and the bylaws that exist now, and what their shortcomings are and what their advantages are. You all may be aware that one of the shortcomings of the current ordinance is it doesn't even really recognize that there is a Parks Department. I mean, it talks really in terms of the commission interacting directly with city council. Well, that hasn't been the case in many years. In fact, the commission was really established before there was a department to deal with Parks and Recreation. And so this is something that's pretty pretty badly in need of updating at this point. And I think we're fortunate that we're going to get an opportunity to look at the ordinance. And Thomas, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but my impression was that we would get an opportunity to look at it and to pass off on, what we suggest that city council pass as an ordinance about this organization. So I think that's an interesting thing for us to get an opportunity to do, and will be a valuable thing that the commission can do. The changes that I have seen being made are not massive. I mean, we'll be able to sit down in a meeting and look at them, talk them through, and get through them, in a reasonable period of time. It's not massive rewriting and pages. The ordinance is really pretty short. Our bylaws are really pretty short. But I think we're off to a good start, and what I'd like you to be thinking about in particular as we do this is that, we have a new council. We have a very new and very exciting new city administration in the city manager's office, assistant city managers, and then with Jason. And these guys approach this a little differently than I think we're used to seeing. And it's refreshing to me to see this. And planning is a big part of what they are very serious about doing and having us participate in. And I think planning is something that this commission could really be a valuable tool for the community to participate in that, to fulfill that role. And so I'm looking forward to that. And again, subject to whatever comments Thomas wants to make, he might just say, well, you're just full of it. But that's the excitement that I've felt upon meeting our new Parks Department folks and beginning this discussion. I hope y'all will find it as exciting as I have, and I think it's going to be fun. So, Thomas, anything else on the bylaws and ordinance?
Well, Lee, you're just full of it. Sorry, I couldn't pass that opportunity if you were going to give it to me that way. In this case, he's full of being mostly right. And I really want to appreciate what you said about
Could you mark that on the recording, please?
let the record reflect. I appreciate the fact that you go over the history lesson of, the fact that the Parks Commission was established in 1960. And the last time, and it was established by ordinance in the city code. So the city code actually says there shall be a Parks Commission and it shall have this many members and it shall function this way. And the last time that code was updated was 1981. So it's been a long time. There's been a lot of changes in the city since then. And the code also says the Parks Commission shall have a set of bylaws that shall govern its membership and its operation. And those haven't been updated for many, many years either. I'm not sure when the last update to the bylaws was, but I know that the first draft that was sent to me was a Xerox copy of something that had been typewritten. So, yeah, I mean typewriter written, not just, typed out. So it's old and it's time to be updated. Both the code and the bylaws need to be updated. They're both very short. They're 2 pages each. So it's not going to take a lot of work to get it done. But because of the interplay between those 2 documents, we have to do it in the right order and we have to do it in the right time. Parks and Recreation directors asked me to try to move this forward to get the first reading of the code amendment on the July 21st council meeting. In order to do that, we need to present you guys with a proposed code amendment and bylaws. Remember, those 2 documents go together so that y'all can review them and approve them and be comfortable with the direction that the Parks and Recreation Department wants to take the commission before we go present it to council, because we want you guys to really be on board with this project. This is y'all's project, not the city council's project. And so we're going to bring to you at your next regular meeting, you see now why it was important that we get that meeting scheduled before the next council meeting. We'll bring that to you at your next regular meeting on the 13th for you to review and to approve the new bylaws. And assuming that that all goes as well as I think it will, then 1 week later at the city council meeting, we will ask council to begin the process of changing the code, which will then allow you to change your bylaws, and then they can approve the bylaws at their next regular meeting on August 4th. Then at that same meeting on August 4th, we expect that council will reappoint members to the board, so that we can have a full, I said board, the Parks Commission, obviously, so that we can have a full commission and actually then begin the work that the bylaws are gonna set out for you to do. So it's gonna be an interesting transition that's gonna take a month or so to do. But it's not really a whole lot of work to be done between here and there. We've just gotta hit those time points the right way. Any other
Okay.
questions, I'm happy to answer them.
So on the 13th, our first regular meeting hence, we'll actually go in and look at the bylaws and the ordinance changes. So will you be able to provide those to us in advance so that we can look at them before?
Yes,
It
sir.
would be helpful, I think, to the commission for us to have the red lines or whatever so that we could see the changes before, and review them so that when we came to the meeting, we'd be prepared to discuss the textual changes and stuff.
Right. The current bylaws say that you can only amend your bylaws if they have been mailed to you at least a week in advance. I hope that y'all will allow me to interpret that to include email so that we can electronically transmit those to you. But yes, you will get a copy of those at least a week in advance, so you'll have plenty of time to review them, digest them, think about them, ask any questions that you may have.
Other questions from members? Sound good? Go ahead.
I was share.
Sure.
I think it's very interesting what you're saying, because with the park, you were saying there hasn't been much changes since what, the 70s or 80s. And being here, coming back after 42 years, I still see some of the same operation that's still there with our parks, like at Riverside. And as per our conversation one time, I think we need something more that'll be attractive to children, to young people, and also the elderly, but then also how to get more tourism coming into our community as well. Because when people, I've seen people go through a park, they say, man, that's a fantastic park you got here. It's big, it's large, it's got a lot to offer. But I think if we start doing, just a thing, maybe like a needs assessment, see what's really out there in the community, see what is it their wants, their desires, and then even with tourists, what they see, because this town has a lot to offer. And if we can attract that, I think we can get a lot of winter birds come here and stay here for a while. Maybe I'm using that term, I hope I'm using that term.
That's okay. I think it's okay.
like it.
I think you can still use that one.
But folks that come here and visit our community want to stay here and want to come back. And because then that word gets out everywhere.
Right.
And I think with our parks, if we see things where kids are really having a good time, they will take care of it, and
Well, Jesse, one of the things that I think is exciting about the new group that's here running the city is that there seems to me to be a view that, the parks, like several of the other functions of the city, are all part of, they're not separate boxes so much. They're more of a larger effort to improve the community, to make the community more inviting, more fun, more inviting place to live. And maybe in a sense, it's all kind of part of economic development at some level. Creating the amenities that, that are the kind of things that people would choose your city to build a business in, to raise a family in, and all those kind of things. And I think bringing that all together is a really good thing. And I think that's what the planning process is aimed at accomplishing, is I'm reading between the lines, and I'm hopeful that, Jason's going to talk a little bit about planning here in a few minutes. And, but that's one of the feelings I get. I don't know if y'all, I see Mike back there. Mike, I don't know how many of y'all have met Mike Etienne, but Mike does articulate this vision when I've heard him speak about it and talk about it. And so maybe he could give us a little bit of a feel for that. But Mike is one of the new assistant city managers here. And so whenever we get to Jason's part, we can, perhaps he can call on Mike to say a word or two. I know Michael is a pretty shy guy, probably don't like to talk, but I mean, I guess you can talk to him if we try.
Well, and if I could, just to go back to the commission bylaws and description, again, we're really not changing anything. We're not looking to change anything except for the purpose. So, the membership is there. We've established the monthly meetings, and so when we do send this out to you, just take a look at the purpose and the definition of that purpose. And I think that's where you're going to see the greatest change or tweaking to the document.
Any other questions from members on that point before we move on? I think we can't take any action until we get something in front of us. So we'll be ready to do that on the second weekend in July. Well, with that, let's move on to item number 4 under F. Jason, discuss the master plan.
Sure. So I'm going to let Mike Atian, our Assistant City Manager, address the commission. And while he's doing that, I'm just going to hand you some information regarding the Parks Master Plan proposal.
Great.
Well, thank you very much, Jason, and thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. Congratulations in meeting again I know it's been a while since we've met, but I'm just glad that we are re-engaged. But today I want to talk briefly about the Parks Master Plan that we are working on. So as some of you know, the 2035 Comprehensive Plan calls for parks and recreation to play a critical role in improving quality of life in our city, and also with making Victoria a destination city. So parks in our plan calls for our existing parks to play a greater role when it comes to economic development, a greater role when it comes to improving quality of life. And all of that is essentially together. We think if we want to move the city forward, parks have to play a greater role because people want to come to Victoria, and parks is a way to attract people to the city. So again, we think parks can help make Victoria a destination city. So the last time that we updated or did our Parks Master Plan was in 2012. That was the last time we did it. And it was done in-house by staff in 2012. So what we are undergoing is an update to this Parks Master Plan. So we have essentially released a RFP, a request for proposal, to select a consulting firm to work with us to develop or update this Parks Master Plan. So this update, we think, will provide a clear vision as to how we want our parks to be. Again, parks playing a greater role when it comes to economic development. So you, as a commission, will play a significant role in that update of the master plan. You essentially will be leading the process, working with staff. We are very comfortable with the leadership that Jason will provide, working with the consultant and working with you, so we can end up with a very good product. As you said, Jesse, parks can play a big role when it comes to promoting, improving quality of life, and enhancing our economic development here. I know people who want to come to Victoria, and they essentially love the city when they come. But parks can be that draw to those individuals. Like you said, the snowbirds, they can come to Victoria. So Riverside Park is a wonderful park where people can come and just spend time with the families. We are currently looking at sports tourism with soccer, baseball, where we can have people come from other parts of the region, come to Victoria, spend time in Victoria, where they can play ball, spend time with their families, Also, at the same time, they will stay in our hotels, they will eat in our restaurants. So that's the part of the sports tourism that we see. And that, and Parks Master Plan will help us come up with that vision for our parks and recreation for the next 10, 15 years. So again, you as Parks Commissioners will play a big role in this because you will be leading that process, working closely with the consultant, um, and also helping with getting citizen involvement and input in the process because we want buy-in from the community. So we are looking forward again to working with you, the staff, to essentially end up with a very good product to improve quality of life, economic development in our city. So Jason has begun the process. So we released the RFP several weeks ago. And the RFP, that's the request for proposal, and that's due July 15. July 15 is when it's due. So we have had several calls from consulting firms who are interested in developing this update of the master plan for us. So again, looking forward to working with you to develop this plan. And Jason, did you have anything else you want to add to the Parks Master Plan?
Yeah, so I could actually talk about Parks Master Plans for probably the next couple of hours. I think they're a really great tool and resource for us to have as a department, as well as for a community. That definitely, as a department, helps us know what the community is thinking as far as, what they're wanting in their parks, what they like to see for recreational programs and events, really even down to conceptual renderings of some of the parks. I think a lot of times you see communities that may not necessarily have a parks master plan in place. And I was at one of those cities before, and it was very easy to be able just to put whatever in whatever space in a park. And so if you don't have a plan, sometimes that park gets really, it's not used to its fullest potential. And so I think that that's what this Parks Master Plan is going to help us identify is, let's just say Riverside, for instance, if we had some conceptual renderings for Riverside, what could that look like? And all of that information is based off survey, off of community input. And so, the plan is going to take a while to complete. We're looking at probably, 6 to 8 months, something along those lines, just depending on how in-depth we get with surveys, with town hall meetings and those kinds of things. But I'm really excited about this plan, and as Mike had mentioned earlier, we have already had a handful of consultants reach out to us regarding questions. What I wanted to do was to provide you at least with some of the basic information that we have for the RFP, which can be found on the website, which I presented to you just a second ago. So on the back of that second page, if I'm not mistaken, that's the timeline. So we actually put out for solicitations back in June 15th. The deadline for questions was June 26th, so I think it was last Friday. We have about a week to be able to get those responses back out to those consultants. And then, as Mike had mentioned earlier, the solicitations are due by the 15th of July. So we're super excited about this opportunity. I think we're going to have a pretty large amount of proposals to review, which is definitely a blessing. So it's always better to have more than not enough.
One other thing about the planning thing that I just want to mention for the benefit of the commission is that, there's a resource component attached to this planning, and that is grant resources. There are, having a well-done comprehensive plan is key to accessing a lot of resources that are available from state and federal sources. And we had recently met to visit with the people at Texas Parks and Wildlife about some of those resources. Very, very exciting. Some of the things that can be done once we get this planning up and running and done, and also this commission, because we would play an important role in those grant proposals as well, or we can play an important role in those grant proposals. So there is a resource component there that we can really hopefully add to the effort. And so that's another role that I'm excited about, and I'm excited about this commission being able to fulfill.
You're right, Mr. Keeling. Having the plan will make it easier for us to apply for grants. Because when we met with Texas Parks and Wildlife, the first question they have is, do you have a plan? You know, without a vision, people perish. So they want to know, do you have a plan? So if we have a good plan in place, they can say, okay, we can fund this, we can fund that, because your plan will identify the different needs or parks needs in your community. So having that plan will definitely make it easier for us to approach grant opportunities.
At one of our last meetings, we were given a booklet of the master plan. Is that the master plan that y'all are building off of, or are you starting over?
No, so I'm not sure what you received, but
As a big,
I think it
There's
was
a
the
book.
2025. I think it's a 2025.
Yeah, that's,
That-
you,
that
you
must-
may have gotten the 2035 comp plan. So that's the comprehensive plan for the city, and it has a component of that plan is parks and recreation. So you may have gotten that part, but the comprehensive plan calls for the city to actually develop a parks master plan. Because the comp plan is more general, it's not specific to parks. So having the master plan for parks will be specific to parks. We'll do a parks assessment. This is where our parks need to be. This is the number of recreational activities we should have. This is what Riverside Park should look like. So this plan is will be more specific than what's in the comprehensive plan. So that's probably what you probably received, Gail.
If I may share real quick with you, sir, I like your idea there about having a strategic plan, because with that also comes logistics, and also comes with a plan in the future. Where do you see yourself another 10, 20 years from now with that park, still having growth? And on that there, I like your idea about the grants, because there are so many out there you could tie it in with Health and Human Services, you could tie it in with Department of Interior, you can also tie it in with Economic Development. So all those things tie in real good. And through my experiences on grants, it's also have team players.
That's
So you
right.
gotta have partnerships out there. So the more partnerships you have, even within but also outside of our community, like you were saying, to bring in people to play sports and soccer and have intramurals here, because I think we have a great layout and a great futuristic future there for this park right here with that land that it had. And also one thing to look at, is that baseball park still called Veterans Park, or does it have a different name now? The baseball stadium itself? Is that called the
Rosebud
Veterans Park?
Stadium?
Riverside Stadium?
Yeah, Riverside?
Yes.
Isn't it
Because in other
Rosebud
parks
Stadium?
I've seen there, they've called them Veterans Park right now, especially what's going on, and because we have a large amount of veterans in this area. And
Me.
one right here too. And we had a section built that would represent the veterans, and even have veterans even buy a brick and build this thing and have a nice, you'd be amazed with the people that would come just to console and just to reminisce with their service there. And that brings a lot of people in.
Well, we'll definitely consider that.
Yeah.
We'll
Absolutely.
just write that down.
And
I
also,
think
real
that's
quick,
great.
if I could, one park we worked at, we were mentioning one time, we put an exercise thing in there where it was made out of metal, and what it is, you use your own weight and all that for your own weights. And it brought families together, it brought outings, you're working out, and plus it was free, just coming to the park, visit. And then you got the trails, people can walk around, de-escalate, do all kinds of things out there.
So Jesse, you're gonna play a big role when it comes to the Parks Master Plan.
Well,
So-
there's
So
a lot
everything
of,
you're
you got a lot of
saying,
vision. You got a lot of
everything you're
vision.
saying could be
And it can
in the
grow.
Parks Master Plan.
Yeah.
Yes.
Will we be setting up work sessions like we did before for master planning?
Well, what I would envision is the consultants are going to be, so whenever we actually sit down and review and we pick a consultant, we're going to develop a schedule in essence. And so that'll say, it'll look like, well, we have 4 community meetings. We have, 2 of them will be town halls. We'll have, 2 of them over here. And so once we get with the consulting group, be able to figure out how many meetings we're going to have, that's when we'll, come and talk to you and say, okay, look, we're able to budget 5 town hall meetings, but still conduct 3 surveys or whatever that looks like. And then we'll take it from there. But I wouldn't see this group, necessarily setting up the meetings. The consulting groups will help with that. I think your role will be to push out that information to the community, right? Help us get people to these town hall meetings so that way we can pack the crowd or pack the halls versus, maybe only having a handful of people at the meeting.
That consultant would probably help define what role we play. That's kind of what I would
To an
guess.
extent, yes, sir.
To an extent, yeah.
Yes, sir.
That's correct. So once we hire the consultant will meet with you and talk about the roles that the commission could play. And one of which could be where the consultant would come and give you a briefing / update monthly. This is where they are and so forth, and get feedback from you. So the consultant will meet with the commission to talk about roles and meetings and so forth.
And I would say probably after the first couple of months, though, a lot of it's going to be just data gathering at first, demographics, what amenities do we have, just comparing it to national and Texas standards, and all the paperwork, legwork will be done at the very start. So, something to update you on will probably come a few months after we actually sign on the dotted line.
Other questions or comments? Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
I'm very excited. I hope everyone else is excited, and we'll take a minute after we're done, maybe to visit a little bit with these guys. Okay, let's move on to the last item, which is items from commissioners. Here, I don't know whether anybody has anything in particular, but the point is that what we can't do in a public meeting is launch off into a discussion about things that are not on the agenda. So the items from commissioners part of the meeting probably needs to focus on issues that you would like to see addressed by the department or in the future on future agendas, so that we can talk about those kind of things. Jason and I had a conversation earlier about a way to facilitate better communication between the commission and the department. Maybe a specific avenue to communicate directly between the commission members and the department. And so I think that's something that we can work on with him. But with that background, do we have items from, who wants to start? Gail?
I have an item, at least one. I hope it fits your rules. I don't know if it fits your rules, and I'm sorry if it doesn't, but it needs to be said. I have to extend a huge thanks out to our city manager and Mike and the Parks Department for completing the Fox's Bend disc golf course. It is absolutely amazing. Folks love it. And the grand opening was during the third week of February. And we had a huge disc golf tournament. We ran 3 courses for the first time. So we ran our Riverside course, which is 37 years old. We celebrated 37 years. We did the grand opening of Fox's, and we also ran a temporary course at Patriot Park. So we were really excited about that. And today I just got confirmation from Commissioner Burns that he's willing to move forward with putting 18 holes of disc golf out at Patriot Park as a permanent course. So that is like super awesome. We've been working on that for at least 6 years. So thank you so much to the city, and I extend that from the disc golf community. Not only here in Victoria, but Corpus, Austin, Houston, all the surrounding counties.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
So, yeah,
I will definitely pass that along. Thank you.
it is appreciated.
Great job,
That's
Gail.
all I have for now. I'll let y'all slide.
Anybody else?
Lee,
Gloria? Yeah.
so I don't know if this fits in with what's going on right now. I get questions all the time, what's up with the dog park?
Oh, the dog park, okay, all right. So that's something we need to maybe update on when we meet
Yes.
again? Okay.
So-
I think that's, I don't think it's, Jason probably isn't steeped in the dog park lore yet. He's probably heard something about it, but the,
At least once.
but that's certainly something we can put on the agenda as for an item to update and talk about.
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Great, thank you.
Mike, you have anything?
No, sir, not today.
All right. Jesse? All right. Okay.
I talked to Jason this morning, and I had lots of items that I came to him with, so I was really pleased that he was very supportive of my 500 ideas, and we'll roll those out later.
Okay. High praise, Jason, high praise indeed. Okay, folks, listen, that's the end of our agenda for tonight. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
A second.
All right. We are adjourned. It's
Thank you.
5:58. All right. Thank you all very much. And Jason, thank you. Mike, thank you. Thomas, wherever you went, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank y'all.
All right.